World, it's your boy J Man.
And it's your girl Ashley J.
And you tuned into another banging episode of Generational Empowerment.
Yes.
So, how you doing today, Ash?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Jay?
I'm good, baby. I'm good.
Yes, so I am so excited about this new series, this relationship goals. As you know, we did do love and relationship. And we just, like we told you last episode, that we just wanted to expound on this new book that we enjoying. It's on the second chapter. Mm-hmm. But we are enjoying. It's called Relationship Goals by Michael Todd, the whole Transformation Church. So we just want to dive right into it.
Oh yes.
Jamin, you ready, Ashley? Ashley? Okay, so this series, this episode is called Identifying Your Inner Self. In order for us to really dive deep into this book or really give the information that's needed, you have to identify some things, and you got to identify yourself first, right?
Mm-hmm. Self-assessments. Yeah, self-assessments.
Definitely. So I just want to really start off with this right here. What really helped me with reading these two chapters, Jay, was that I like how Michael Todd broke things down that really helped me in a way that I was able to understand. Like, first and foremost, you have to invite God in.
Absolutely.
Even the smallest details, like he wants you to invite you in. Like, even in the book, it has stated that. I love how he shows us how to invite God in. Like, basically, he gave an example of saying, "God, help me to not cuss anyone out because this traffic is frustrating." We forget about like the smallest things. Like I never even thought about that. Like inviting God into those things. How you frustrated or something's not going the way you think you wanted to go.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, okay. Let me talk to God. Let me invite God in. Let Him know, like, help me get through this troubling time. Like I feel it coming on. And to me that was just dope.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just to kind of like touch on that, inviting God in. I think in order to grow in your relationships, whether it be with yourself, because we all do know that we have a relationship with self, is you have to be transparent. And in order to be transparent, you got to get God involved in every little thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, He already knows what you're going to do before you're going to do it, what mistakes you're going to make before you even make them, or whatever the case may be. But it's just that simple fact of ensuring that, He's always got some sort of something in your mind. You know what I'm saying? Some sort of little inkling, whatever it might be. Just making sure that we do invite God in.
Definitely invite God in. So I want to start off with, we live in a world, well, in the first chapter it states, like, we live in a world of more relationships, less love, more sex, and less intimacy. So for me, I'm just going to give the stand on me. And it's like, what I learned about relationships before was that, you learn more about sex. You learn more about love. You don't learn more about the relationship. You don't learn more about intimacy. I wasn't told about finding myself before finding something that will have a foundation.
Right.
Whether it's relationships that you have with a romantic partner, or a relationship that you have with a friendship. I didn't get that teaching. So that really stood out to me. Like, we do live in a world like that. I was taught about keeping things spicy with sex. Before.
You were taught that? Really?
I had older sisters. I had a lot of older friendships, and they would talk about like we spoke about last time. My cousin, we watched porn, and so it was just like, okay, so I'm introduced to that versus myself, learning about me, finding my purpose. There wasn't any talks about waiting to marriage. Like, that wasn't even on the table. It wasn't talks about it was talks about foreplay than intimacy. Like, it was what you do to lead up to sex versus intimate, where mental stimulation.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I guess kind of like to touch on that. I was brought up in a church. I was mostly raised by my grandparents for quite some time. So of course I was brought up in a church. So what was kind of like, of course, beat into our head in like Sunday school and this, and the third, and plus I was in the choir. Wait till you're married to have sex. Wait till you're married to have sex. But then turn around and I'm best friends with the pastor's daughter, and I hear about the stuff she's doing in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, you know, as kids growing up, you're impressionable. But the thing about it is, I think more or less in African American households, the parents do not necessarily teach the values of the relationship, because at the end of the day, they don't have anything to base it off of. What is a single, and I guess it comes from, okay, so I'm a single mom, so what I look like trying to tell my daughter, because basically
she needs to wait, find out your person, figure out who you are before you try to get in a relationship, before you even embark on that.
Right.
And that's really good, because like we stated, the parents are so involved in trying to push things economically in the family, you know, financially in the family, that they miss a lot of key points that you know kids need, that I needed growing up. Like I said, all these things. We talked about keeping it spicy in the bedroom. We talked about, you know, not waiting. We talked about stimulation, but what about the attraction that you have where the guy cares about pushing things forward, where he cares about your well-being and not trying to manipulate you and use you only to get what he got, or even being able to determine that. I couldn't even determine that until I got much older, way off into when I first started, you know, having sex, and I didn't understand that. So it was just a lot of those key points that was missed, that if it wasn't, I mean, if it was introduced, then I think I would have a different stance or a different journey now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, you know, dealing with, you know, being abused as a child, you know, the whole molestation thing, you know, I was, of course, brought into sex early on. But as far as going about a relationship, the only relationship that I really had to look up to was an aunt and uncle and my grandparents. My grandparents have been married for like over 20 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, those two relationships were just kind of like what I looked at as like ideal. You know, they were married, but the thing about it was both parties have been married, but they have kids outside of the marriage, you know, and not necessarily with each other. And then I look at my own in-home situation. My mom was with my brother's father for 15 plus years, but they never married. However, her and my dad were together less than 5, and they were married and divorced in less than 5.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, you know, it's we're living in a time where, as it comes to relationships, we're looking at social media. As he listed in the book, we're looking at social media. Yeah. We're looking at what we see on TV, Love and Hip Hop, The Housewives, and this and the third. That's what we see as relationship goals. Relationship goals.
The main thing is they have money into it. So with money, there comes power, there comes influence. So you look up to these relationships because they have those stands. And the number one key thing they're missing is God. Right. And that's why he said that having a goal without aim is senseless, but having a goal without God is pointless. So you think about, none of those things have God. Right. So it becomes pointless. So why should they even be a relationship goal? Because they have influence of money, because they have influence of being on TV.
On TV, because of what you see on social media. Just like, I don't know if I sent it to you, I sent it to one of my followers where one of the girls from Love and Hip Hop, she was like, "Oh, I think this is the prayer that Sierra prayed."
Yeah, you said that to me.
Akbar. Yeah, she was. I don't know if she was. Yeah, she was being funny, but she seemed like she was being serious at the same time. Where it's just kind of like people look at other people's relationships, but they do not realize what other people probably had to go through. We don't know what Sierra had to go through in order to get with Russell. You know what I'm saying? And just like the people we see on social media, just like the people we see on TVs, you honestly, like they say, walk a mile in that person's shoes and you'll really see if that's really a goal for you.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, having you got goals, but your aim is all wrong. Like you're aiming for a relationship with that somebody has that you don't even know, they might be doing it as a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
You're aiming for a relationship. Oh, just like folks love to say, Jay-Z and Beyonce, them goals, relationship goals,
Yeah,
or
you don't know what.
but you don't know what they go through outside of what you see on social media. When the last time you seen Jay-Z and Beyonce go live on any social media platform?
Or talk about anything that could push the culture forward with what they have learned about being at a status of that statue, and it's just like
what he pointed out, that's why like these first 2 chapters were just kind of like the bomb.
Yeah,
because it was just
like,
kind of like
eat it.
It was like eat it up, get into it, because it was like real life, what you dealing with. Like at first, because I read it with a good friend of mine, and at first I was like, dang, you gonna sit through this and you gonna listen? Because the first chapter is what, like 25 pages, 27 pages. So
it didn't even feel like that.
It didn't even feel like it. That's what the point that I was trying to make is, as you're reading the book, it doesn't even feel like you've read through that many pages. It's just because it's just like something on every page and every paragraph that's just gonna kind of like, it's either gonna jump out at you, or it's digging in your front of your back pocket.
Yeah, definitely. So that leaves me, deciding what direction to take when we are aiming, what will get me to the goal and finding my destination, which is where I actually want to reach, is essential to winning a relationship. I have to identify, like he states, the direction and the destination. So with identifying the direction of, okay, if I'm a single person, I want to go in the direction of, are you dating to marry? Are you married? Are you dating to, come together and live out their purpose, the reason why you guys were brought together? That's essential to winning at relationships, because if you don't have an aim, you don't have a target, you basically just shooting. And, like what we say about motivation, you want to, as long as you shoot, right, it doesn't matter if you hit the stars or the moon, but you're going to land somewhere.
Right.
But when it comes to, for me, what I feel like, when it comes to, in this sense, if you just shooting, you will shoot anywhere. You're going to land anywhere. You're going to land in somebody else's bed. You're going to land in somebody else's heart. Yep. You get what I'm saying? So it's very essential to understand what direction and what, destination that you want to get to.
But, okay, so with that, you have to figure out where you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest thing for people, is to come to terms with who you are and where you are. And in the first chapter, it's crazy how he put it, because this is the part that confused me, so I'm going to kind of break it down.
Okay.
So he was like, it says, just to suggest that the diversity that's possible, here are some relationship goal examples. And this is what threw me off. So he was like, I need to break up with my abusive boyfriend, move out of his apartment, spend some time not dating anybody. I need to rediscover who I am and focus on getting back to God. So basically, your relationship goal should be where you currently are. Basically, to figure out your relationship goal, you need to figure out where you currently are and what's going to make your life better. Basically. Okay. So
the key point he said that is abusive. Abusive,
right. Okay, so here's the next one. I'm so used to being in multiple relationships for fun, but I'm tired of empty relationships. I want a relationship with depth. I want to find a wife who is cool with a lot of travel and small income, because I am committed to a career as a musician in a band. This next one I think is probably going to hit home for a lot of people, because it confused me at the way it is spent. I want to be free of my addiction to porn and start living in the real world instead of a fantasy world inside my head. I failed at this before, and I know I need God to help me. So what threw me off about that was, okay, so he says you want to free your addiction of porn and start living in the real world. So does that mean that basically, because of the fact of what you're watching, you're putting yourself in a fantasy world? Or is it just a general statement of basically, due to the addiction that you have of what it is, that's what creates you to have this fantasy world of thinking?
Both. That's why both are stated. Simply because, right, when you do watch porn, you are living in a fantasy, because then you're gonna be expecting the cut. And let's go back again. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're not looking at the production of it.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? You just seeing the final product. And that's a fantasy. That's not reality at all, because at the end of the day, you're gonna expect your partner to produce these type of reactions, these type of positions.
Right.
And it's just like, if that's what you are going off of and you're thinking that is what's going on in the real world, oh, you got a rude awakening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next, for my addictions, well, for people with addictions, these are the biggest things that I want to kind of like bring on the forefront as far as a book, which that's why I think it can help a lot of people. My sponsor says my sobriety is at risk if I keep hanging around friends who are drinkers. I want some new people to hang out with who know how to have fun without a glass in their hands. So basically, there it is once again about either what your surroundings or what you're putting into your body, which can affect your aim at the end of the day. So hey, if you know that you have an addiction to something, why put yourself around that? Or if your partner knows that you have an issue or an addiction to something, why would they subject you to that? You know? Yeah. I really want to get engaged, and this is probably for the people out there that are in relationships. I really want to get engaged, but I have so many fears and so many memories of past failures. I need the courage to ask my girlfriend to marry me and begin to lead her boldly in Christ. I loved that one because it was just kind of like that right there. That should be your aim if you are in a relationship. And then as a man, you know, you want to lead, you know, or sometimes it's okay to let your partner lead because they may know more about it than you. Yeah. You know?
True, fair.
For the folks with kids, this might be something that your children are dealing with. I know I'm only a teenager and haven't had a serious relationship yet, but I really feel God is calling me to be a mom of several children. I need to start getting wisdom to prepare for that future. So I'm wondering, like, what actually takes place that causes any teenager to have that kind of thought process? That they might be a mom of several children, you know? Or what are they being shown from a parent standpoint, from any type of standpoint that would make them think in that manner, you know? I think that should probably be the last thing a teenager has on their mind is about being a parent.
But not actual. And I'm just give my personal experience, and that's so funny that it correlates to it, and I didn't even pick up on it till now. So when I was 13, I got two younger brothers, and you know, I never spoke on this, but my mother is a drug addict. So she would leave for from weeks at a time, and that left, you know, my other two sisters. They teenagers, so I'm already a homebody. I'm just like, okay, let me put myself in a position where, you know, my family could win. You know, my stepfather, he was a truck driver, so he was kind of in and out. And I was faced with adult situations where I had to cook and clean. I had to take my brothers to school. You know, we lived in a project, so the school was like across the street. You know, I remember cutting their hair. I remember taking them baths, help with homework. While I was 13, still having to do the things that I need to do for myself. So if I had the spiritual guidance that, or even the spiritual maturity that I have now, I was feeling that way. You know, like, okay, now when I'm like hindsight, I'm like, oh wow, all of that prepared me for where I am now, and then plus where I'm going. But those things was in my mind. I had to quickly mature. I didn't really have too much of a childhood. That's probably why I play extremely too much now. But I didn't get that luxury.
Because I didn't have that either. I had two younger brothers that I pretty much, you know, had to help raise in a sense, you know, for some period of time. So
exactly. So it left me with not having that luxury of being so child free, or you know, having childlike tendencies. So I just was always like, okay, let me make sure I set up parameters that not only made me comfortable, but made my siblings comfortable. You know, made my mom comfortable, because for a long period of time, I never. It was very hard for me to agree with my mom being on drugs. You know, you got siblings, y'all have rivalries and stuff like that. So my sister, that's a couple of years older than me, she would always be like, "Yo, junkie mama." And I'd be like, "My mom ain't no junkie." You know, I took up for so long until I just started seeing things. And I'm like, okay, actually, like, you know, you just can't keep covering up. But it put me in that mind state where it's just like, okay, I see that this is going to go on for a long period of time, which it didn't. You know, I definitely had family members that took care of me and helped me have a different lifestyle. But without that, then I would have continued to have that mindset. You know, I would have continued to, you know, keep things on where it was just like not having that teenager, that preteen lifestyle. You know, I had to think like an adult. So I could definitely, you know, it's just in those cases. And it's funny that was even brought up. But,
I know,
yeah.
I wanted to get some understanding, because when I first read it, I was just kind of like, wow, like, because I know me as a teenager, like, I wasn't thinking about, like, I didn't want no kids because of the simple fact I got to clean up after my little brothers, I got to wash their clothes, I got to make sure they got dinner every night, they take their bath. When they do something, I get in trouble for it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want no kids.
Yeah.
But I can see how on the other spectrum of the different sex, it might seem that way. You know, where it's like, oh, okay, you know, I need to go ahead and have this mindset ready because I'm about to be a mama of a whole bunch of kids. So,
yeah. And that made me, and even now with wanting to have kids, like I always, and I have told any guy that I was with, I want 5 kids, you know. And I think that probably is because it would feel some type of void, because honestly, I said I was going to show my mom what she should have done. I don't hold any grudges. I am the only child that has forgiven my mom, which is crazy. I never, like I said, it took me the longest time to even comprehend what was going on. So I never put it up in her face or, you know, disrespected her in that manner. But I think I just wanted that big family to see, like, okay, this what should have been done, or just to even the spectrum and the scale, because of what I went through, not wanting my kids to go through.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't read it. My sister hates that I want kids, because she got 2 kids, she don't want no kids. But you know, that's funny. That's really funny. And so with that, like we were talking about direction and destination, and when I didn't know this, it made me have sense why I went down the wrong path, because I was misguided with no sense of direction, and I was just aiming wherever,
and just trying to find some sort of comfort in what kind of ever came in your direction.
Yeah. So I definitely want to tell everybody, it don't matter what Sierra prayed to God about, what you think she prayed about. And, you know, you got to rip up that list. You know, that list of that man, that woman that you think that you want, because God has for what you need. He truly has what you need. And if it wasn't for, you know, like having some type of spiritual guidance. You know, my grandfather, he was a hood pastor, I would say. But he definitely embedded that in me. I just wasn't ready to receive it. And so it left me with, you know, I knew that, okay, that my life, I could have an abundant life, but I just wasn't ready because of my circumstance, because of praying to God for so many years. And it's so funny.
Wants every single one of us to have successful relationships, but we have to have a goal that is stable enough for us to aim at. So let me point out to you that the only thing that is unchangeable, unwavering, and immovable is the Word of God. Isaiah 40:8 tells us the grass withers and the flowers fade, but the Word of God stands forever. So I dare you, no, I double dog dare you, to let the standard of your relationships be God's Word, even if it's just for the time it takes you to finish this book. Let's just see what would happen in our hearts, minds, and lives if we would follow the stable biblical model of relationships instead of following our own feelings or other people's examples.
And what I want to add to that, being stable at being okay with whatever stage you are in life, being stable at, you know, the maturity, being stable about forgiveness, and being whole. You know, that's what we have to be stable in when God wants us to be successful in relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. So on that note, guys, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hit you with chapter 2. Guys, I'm your boy J Man,
and I'm your girl Ashley J.
So Ashley, before we before we left off, we were wrapping it up on chapter 1, and so now we're getting ready to dive into chapter 2, titled "Before the Person."
Before the person, right? So when we put God first, He will bless the rest, and that just biblical in everything. You put God first in your business, your relationship. Put Him just at the forefront of your life, then He'll bless the rest. It doesn't matter if you know what the rest is. Just know that God got your back, you know? For me, that's when my whole life had changed, when I put God at the forefront, where I wasn't doing what I thought was was good or felt good, when I wasn't going off my fleshly desires, when I wasn't going off my own understanding, and being with someone that wasn't in tune with God. Then I knew that, you know, like, okay, I was doing the right thing. So that's when my life changed, when I put Him first.
That's good. That's good.
You can't win a relationship without God.
That's very true. You know, the place that I'm in, as far as like being single, just trying to kind of like figure life out, and you know, the realization that I've come to over the last couple days, I think especially since reading the book, is why am I trying to figure it out?
Why am I trying to figure out? Because you want something different than your previous life. Because, you know, now this is a renewed life where God wasn't at the forefront, right? So it's just like, for me, what I always say, like, you done mastered that life. You know the ins and outs. You done reached the highest level that you can go.
Yeah.
So let's try something different.
Absolutely.
And that's inviting God.
And I think the biggest thing of me saying, like, why am I trying to figure it out, is because while I've been trying to figure it out, I be beating myself up.
Yeah, you do.
I be beating myself up, and it's just kind of like, who can live like that? You can't live happy. That is not in God's will. No way possible. And if you're like me, if you're on a spiritual journey of trying to figure it out, and you know, trying to make sure that you're on the right path, that's all you need to do, is make sure you're on the right path. But trying to figure it out, you're not going to.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, He's already got it figured out. He's already working it out for you. It's just, like you said, you have to put Him first. You have to put Him at the front door. You have to put Him in the passenger seat or the driver's seat, you know, at the end of the day. More or less the driver's seat than the passenger seat, but of course, in literal sense, you know.
Yeah.
Make sure that God is your co-pilot in everything that you do. And at the end of the day, you just have to do things with a good heart. Yeah. But I think for myself, I've found some comfort over the last couple of days of just saying, you know what? I'm not going to continue to try and, let me figure this out. Like, no, just breathe. And just continue pushing forward. I start every day off with Him, and I'm going to end every day with Him. You know what I'm saying?
Preach.
And at the end of the day, that just kind of like is what it is, you know. I'm going to let you go ahead, because, you know, I'll be getting going.
Yeah, okay, with chapter 2, it does explain, you know, about, you know, having God in your relationships, you know, romantically, friendship, business. Just having, like I said, we stated before, even the smallest detail. All He wanted for us was a mustard seed of faith. So why wouldn't we include Him in even the smallest details of our life?
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So for me, without the Lord, I would have a nasty attitude. I would be a cursor. Like, I'm already like a sailor, but I would just be, I could be very vulgar. I will be a manipulator, a liar, a cheater. I would have a malice heart because of the things that I was exposed to. So without God, these are the things that will be my attributes. So with God, you know, those are non-existent. And I'm very thankful for the transformation. I was very thankful for Him giving me an opportunity, you know, to be a servant. You know?
Absolutely.
It speaks about, you know, even Michael Todd, he spoke on, without the Lord, he would have, or he would be, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Right. I want to speak on you saying, like, a servant, or, you know, becoming a servant. And it's so crazy, because when I first met you, we were talking about like where you used to work at compared to where you work at now, and like why am I doing this? You know, and it was because you had to learn to serve people.
Yeah.
More or less at the end of the day. And I think that's for all of us, like realizing why you're in the place that you're in, why you're working that job, or why you're in that relationship that you're in, or why you're single. Why? Because at the end of the day, God has a plan for all of us. So at the end of the day, before He can bless you with something more, He has to know that you're going to be able to handle the current place that you're in now.
Yeah.
He needs to know you're going to be able to.
Ooh, yeah.
That's
good. Yeah, it is.
That is. He has to know that. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to give you that boyfriend who don't treat you as good. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to turn you into a horrible person. But what it is going to teach you is, you remember those red flags that I tried to show you in the beginning that you ignored, or my word that you ignored when I was trying to tell you something? Because God speaks to all of us.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. So, and when you're working that job, you're like, God, like, oh man, so I was on the way here and me and my grandma were talking, and it's so crazy. She didn't know what we were talking about today. She was just like, the reason that we are on lockdown like this is because God wants us to find inner self. You're on lockdown, or you've been on quarantine, or whatever the case may be. Things are shut down. Why? Because God wants you to find you, your inner self, your inner being. What's going on within you without all those outer distractions. The clubs aren't open. The public parks aren't, all of these things are not open for you to be just so distracted and want to get everything right on the outside. Can't get everything right on the outside. So what you can do, you can work on that inner piece, that inside of self, that inner self, that I can't figure out the words that I'm trying to figure out, but I think you get where I'm going with this. Like, at the end of the day, we're in this place that we're in for a specific reason. And one of the most important specific reason is, number one, to get close to God. Because I think if you haven't, over the course of the last 2 months, the last 60 days, tried to form some relationship with God, or tried to form some sort of foundation with God, then I think you missed the whole thing of what was going on as far as the whole coronavirus or whatever the case may be. But also within that, these last 60 days should have allowed people to also find themselves. Why? Because you ain't been able to go get your nails done, you ain't able to go get your hair done, you ain't been able to go get your waxes and your eyebrows and your lashes and this and the third. But what you have been able to do is meditate and work on inner self.
Also, too, if you are in a partnership, it's not giving you that escape route.
Right.
So it's making you aware of what is the problems in your relationship.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's either, hey, we're going to deal with it head on and be able to identify this, and this. Because it's just like, oh, okay, got these things going on. Or I can go escape with work. Or I can go escape with play, where I'm just chilling with the girls or the homies. You know what I'm saying? So it's just putting you in that alignment where you should understand that if you didn't know before, God should be the source. Even if you're going through financial situations, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, who can supply you through this time? Whether can't nobody come, hey, let me give you not just $1,200, but let me give you $5,000, let me give you $10,000. People have been overly generous in this time of this pandemic. So it's supposed to restructure your mindset, right? Refocus what you thought into what He is saying.
Absolutely. That's really good. And I guess that's kind of like where I was kind of going with that is, I thought that I was supposed to, all this stuff jumping off, the brand coming out, the radio station, yada yada yada. I thought, this it right here. Well, I guess actually, this it right here. We finna be up out. And sure enough, God will. He didn't necessarily like put things on hold. More or less, what He did is, hey, y'all not ready for that yet. You not ready for that yet. Whomever it might have been, you're not ready for that yet. But this is the time to, at the end of the day, take some self-evaluations, figure out what's going on. So therefore, when it is your time, you got your stuff together. You got it together, and you got me.
He's trying to get us to fully understand the divine connections.
Yes.
The divine connections. And you will know when it's a divine connection. And we had a part where, Michael Todd did state, of course he reworded some names and things too, but he was just speaking about when he knew of someone that was believing in God, head on, love, going to church, love, praise and worship, and then some things happened where their faith withered. And I'm going to give my own testimony where I know someone personally that I know that the Lord was with them. They was on a path where they was about to get married and yada, yada, yada. And everything quickly crumbled. She left him at the altar. Some things just, didn't go. He found out that she was a porn star. She was living a whole different type of, another life that he knew of. And he allowed that situation to destroy his connection with God. And instead of him thinking that this was a setup for you to dodge a bullet, you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He looked at it as if he was left. God had left him out to dry.
Right.
And so he stopped believing in God. He stopped talking about God. And what was very interesting to me, he still had godly books around, like in his bookshelf, in his bookcase, but when we would speak on God, it was nothing of that. When I would say I was going to church, you want to join, it was none of that. And it was just like one circumstance could just destroy everything that you have believed in, everything that you have known, because your parents are God-fearing people. They have crosses, they have, knickknacks around the house of Jesus, or, just certain things that's Christian-based. So, and he just totally just, not fond of it, and that's because of something that he's dealing with, where he thought that, okay, maybe she was turning tricks off the ceiling. I don't know, but that's probably what he truly wanted, but that's not what he needed.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I just wanted to relay that message in a sense where even those cases, like how we believe we want something, it's not for us to be destroyed, it's to strengthen us. Absolutely. You got to change your perspective on it.
You have to find the strength within certain situations that take place in your life. You have to know the difference between test and trial, valley, and a mountain peak. And you have to also understand, we give the devil so much credit a lot of times.
And I kept saying to myself, like, God, are you putting me in this position to bring him back to you? What is my stance on here? And he gave me the run for my life. But it was all for the glory of God. God turned it around, and because of that situation, I was able to become a stronger woman, a more powerful woman, in a sense of being a servant of God, where it allowed me to be in a marriage where, my obedience is appreciated,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things also is, I was having this conversation with you last week. Mm-hmm. Remember I sent you them emojis Saturday night?
Oh, yeah.
And I was just kind of like, Ash, like, this ain't making no sense to me. Like, I'm doing all the right things, or so I thought I was doing all the right things. But like I say, in situations, you go through situations to learn something. Mm-hmm. And there's a lesson in all of it. We might not realize what that lesson is at that perfect time, or at that time while we're going through it. But trust me, when it hits you, and you be like, I was up here mad, cursing God out and everything, and here it is. He was just trying to show me something.
Yeah, he's just trying to show you something. And I'm so thankful, but my wilderness was a lot different from a lot of people, and that's why I'm able to speak so confidently, that I do now, because I changed my perspective on it, because I want to get promoted, God. Like, listen here, trust me, the life that I lived, I was a master. I'm very petty. Like, I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong. I took my PhD away. Okay. But I can be petty, but I used to be. Well, trust me, if you would have made me back then, none of this would be going on now. So I'm very grateful, but I had to be self-aware. I had to learn my inner self. What I love, what I don't like. And I'm so grateful for it. If I was on my high horse, I would have never stayed at that job because I had always been in a position where, my input was valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's not now, but I just had a lot more. I was just always in a higher position.
Right.
So it's just like I had to sacrifice going to school, being demoted or getting demoted because I wanted to be. But it just like, okay, what's the bigger picture? And not knowing that all these things was gonna come about it, because I was so headstrong on school, and now I could care two looks about school. But because I've gained so much more, I've gained my purpose. I know who I'm supposed to touch, how to touch them, So, yeah.
Well, guys, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we return, we'll have more on chapter 2. Hey guys, and we're back. And when we left off, we were basically talking about what, hidden connections?
Yeah.
Okay. So Ashley, come on, get us some more of that heat going. Get us some more of that heat. The pot was stirring, baby. The pot was stirring.
It definitely was stirring. So one of the most valuable things that I read was that if you are fake towards yourself, then it is not a godly relationship. If you feel like you are pretending to be someone, right? You trying to pretend that you got what you say you have as far as money, cars, clothes, accolades, then you pretending. When it comes to a friendship or in a relationship, trying to pretend that's not something that's a divine connection, and you should quickly sever ties because nothing good is going to come out of it. It's going to be a lot of hurt, deceit, and further pain that you're going to cause between you and that person.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest things we talked about before in relationship goals was the representative.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop.
2-1.
I'm just gonna stop because it would.
Relationship goals was one of the biggest things we talked about before in relationship goals.
One more time.
So we're gonna talk about we're going in relationship goals. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. On 3, 1. Oh no. On 3, 1, 2, and 3, go.
Was the person pretty much presenting you their representative?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean that right there, bam, dead ringer. Obviously, ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work. So at the end of the day, you got to keep it real. But also, being in that relationship with yourself, you got to keep it real with yourself. But there's a catch-22 to that.
What?
Because you have a lot of preachers out there that say, oh, you got to fake it till you make it. And, in order to get more, you got to, present yourself as having more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I heard that.
And you hear that in the church, and it's crazy because at the end of the day, we have to get to a point in life where all of our leaders are on the same path.
Yeah.
All of our leaders are preaching the same things, because you go to one church, and say if you're one of those people where at the end of the day, you're not necessarily you want to be stuck to one church type of person. You don't want to just join a church and just get your word there. You like to kind of float around and visit like the mega churches. So you're going to go to the Dream Centers, and you're going to go to the New Births, and you're going to go travel out of town and go to Transformation Church, and travel out of town and go to this church. You know what I'm saying? So, but you have to make sure that all of the preachers are on the same page, because you're going to have one person telling you one thing, but then that comes to, I guess, what we always talk about is those soul ties and those connections.
Yeah. But what you said that just stood out, or what God says in his love letter, that's what I call the Bible, is that get your own understanding. In all doings,
Get your own understanding.
So no matter what the church is saying, still read your Bible to get your own perspective on what you think, because T. Jakes may say one thing, Michael Todd may say another thing, Sarah may say another thing, your pastor may say another thing.
Right.
But, and that's all based on their experiences, their revelations. So you have to still read the word and apply it to what you have went through, your experiences, your revelations. So it doesn't matter, just because they're not on the same court doesn't mean that you have to be frustrated or discombobulated as well.
Right, absolutely. I'm actually going to talk about one in our East of the Streets report.
Okay,
Some
cool.
information I found out.
So we're gonna move along because we have a purpose to fulfill, and fulfilling that means more than pretending to be someone that you're not. So you will basically, like we touched on being fake and pretending, you won't reach your purpose. You won't find out who you truly are in the duration that you're supposed to, if you are pretending, if you're false claiming, right? So just like they do say, fake it till you make it. But at the end of the day, it just all depends on how you correlate it, because actors, they get a role, they take on this role, and then they'll self-destruct because now they can't get themselves out of the role.
Right.
So it just like, no matter what, if you're pretending to be something, it's ultimately you're going to self-destruct because it's not truly who you are.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have God at the forefront of your life too, then you won't be able to come out of a lot of things that may be a little uneasy or a little confusing, So you definitely want to understand about your purpose, and that's within your purpose. That's when you find, having inner self. When you find your inner self, that's where you will find your purpose.
Your purpose.
God gave us purpose before He gave us a person.
Yeah, that was something that He did. He did put in there. How basically before you were even formed in your mama's belly, He already knew His purpose for you in life, where you were going to go, what you were going to do. He had it all planned out. He had it all drawn out. But then also it's, some of us that go and decide to take our own course.
Yeah.
And He has to basically reel you back in.
Yeah. We do a lot of things that, like we spoke before, that was never intended for us to go into or experience.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, He's going to use it for His glory, but, that wasn't His intentions.
Right.
Even though He did know us, because a lot of people get confused. Well, He already knew I was going to do this, and that. Yeah, but that's why He gave us free will. And then that's why He sent His Son to die, so we can have salvation.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. I was talking to someone this week, and after we had went live on Wednesday, and they were like, you had said something about people's testimonies or whatever, and they were basically like, people get it mixed up, like how you got a testimony about something and you still going through it. And I had to explain to them, well, it's different levels to different struggles. So at the end of the day, you don't know what they might have went through for the first 10 years of that struggle they might have been battling with, to compare to where they are today.
Yeah.
And what they're doing with. Everybody's struggle is different, and I tell people all the time, you never want to discredit someone's story.
Yeah. Truly. So true relationships help push our purpose instead of hindering it. Even when you're in a relationship, if you're saying to yourself, is this relationship helping me? Am I helping this person out as well? That's how you're able to determine, is this something good? Is this something healthy? Because I know for me, I was in a lot of previous relationships where it was kind of, what is it called? When you're steady. I always gotta use my words. When you complacent.
Oh, okay. You got comfortable.
Yeah, you got comfortable.
You got comfortable, man.
A lot of relationships like that where, we probably go to church on Easter, those type of things, but God was not at the forefront. And, nothing was pushing us to go after our dreams. It was just like, hey, we're going to be cool with smoking weed. We're going to be cool with having sex out of marriage. We're going to be cool with, just not doing anything that's pleasing to the kingdom. So God said, okay, you learned enough. So it's time to get on, do what you need to do. So, that's my ending of chapter 1 and 2. What I've learned. This book has truly blessed me in so many ways, and I am so eager to get to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and discuss this. So we definitely want you guys to join us. This is a book club. What we'll be doing on our social media, we'll kind of put up these type of videos because I know everyone can't reach our live, but we would like for you guys to go on YouTube to watch the full episodes listen to the podcast. If you're not a visual person, chime in. Tell us if you are reading the book, what's your stance on chapter 1 and 2. Join in with us because we want to see. We are in different stages, so we're giving different perspectives. But you may have went through something different, may have experienced something different. So we definitely want you to chime in on us. Chime in with us and tell us your standpoint. And Jay got that heat for the ear to the streets.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. What's going on, world? It's your boy J Man, and I'm coming with that heat and my ear to the streets.
You like how I said that earlier?
So to get things kicked off, as you know, we have been reading the book Relationship Goals by Pastor Michael Todd, and we just love his positivity, everything he puts into the air and everything else. However, speaking of people that are pastors of mega churches, Pastor Jamal Bryant was in the news this week. And we're basically we're congratulating him on the birth of a baby boy that took place from a woman who should remain nameless. Is right. Yeah.
No, this ain't no first lady.
No, this is not Giselle.
Oh, he is married.
He's not. They're divorced and working on things from what they put out there, to social media and everything else.
Wow.
Once he got back into, once he took over for New Birth, once he took over as their senior pastor, she came down, the girls came down. He actually purchased the restaurant Arizona's off of Turner Hill by Stonecrest Mall, and the girls actually are going to be the ones managing that restaurant. But yes, this isn't his first time having a baby by someone in the congregation. This is actually the second child. The first time was a little bit after him and Giselle took their little break. But yeah, this is the second baby that is born out of wedlock. From what my source is stating, one of his congregational members. So we're all just a little curious as to where Giselle is going to be sitting once things are, once things do start back up. And, the church's doors are wide open. Where she going to be sitting and where his baby mama is going to be sitting. But yeah,
man.
So yeah, that's where I was kind of trying to get to as far as, every pastors and preachers, they need to get on the same page because you're preaching one thing, but you're out here doing another. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, you feel like you have that covering, or you feel like, somebody that you can confide in, this and the third, and lo and behold, they out here in the streets doing their own little thing.
Yeah.
By making you feel condemned on Sunday.
But, yeah.
And
with being a pastor doesn't mean that they are perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. But when you are in that type of limelight where, and that's why people are so confused when it comes to God, because you get people speaking on God, but they are living a totally different life. So it's like, okay, who do I confide in? Who do I be vulnerable with? And that's why God said, put your trust in me. Do not put your trust in man, because they will always leave you down a road, or they just can't be counted on.
They're going to leave you down a road of destruction.
Yes.
Basically.
Amen.
Basically. Moving it along, I always like to bring up something as it comes to coronavirus. CNN report states that coronavirus can persist in men's semen even after they have began to recover. So that's just a little strange to me, but I guess, it just kind of is what it is.
So you gotta get all your semen out too when you get rid of corona.
I take it you got to handle your business, and you can't do that with your partner. Otherwise, you're gonna get them corona. So you worried about giving them anything else sexually transmitted, and you got to worry about giving them corona.
Yeah, COVID.
In our own hometown, ATL, in the South Fulton area, Mr. Shannon Brown was arrested after Monica ex-husband. Yes, he was at home chilling. I guess he has a for sale sign in his yard, and a couple was actually out, in the neighborhood looking at houses and this and the third. Well, I guess when they got out of their vehicle and started walking, I guess, towards the home or whatever, he felt that they were trying to rob him, so he fired a rifle at the two. And so he was arrested for that. Not much more was provided in the story except for his portion and their portion. I'm not necessarily sure what the charges were, but he was arrested for firing a rifle at the two people attempting to tour his South Fulton home. So
how he gonna think they trying to rob him? You got a for sale sign, and it's just like when you get robbed, they don't come through your front door like that. Where you visually see them.
I don't think it was more or less of them coming through the front door. I think it was them being on the property that startled him the most.
How? When you have a for sale sign?
It just, kind of goes down that way. At the end of the day, I don't think I don't think anybody expected him to be there, and I don't think he expected anybody to be on his property.
He's supposed to call.
But and technically you are supposed to call and everything else. I think it was just more or less what was how.
But we all been in that situation where we are going out looking. You know what I'm saying? If you do have those for sale or yeah. Our engineer said it was a racial thing. Normally black people, we put for sale signs on our car. A person come up to you, bro, what you come this close for? So yeah.
It just
shut down what I said.
The times that we're living in, I think the biggest thing at the end of the day, communication is key.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my next story. So as of last week, you remember our last episode, I was reporting on Ahmaud Arbery, and I really hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. His shooters, Mr. Gregory McMichael and Mr. Travis McMichael, that's the father and the son, their arrest came this past Thursday after the family's attorney basically called the shooting a modern day lynching. And I think I know how the arresting came to part is because video surfaced from Mr. William Bryan. Consequently, all these three people are friends. So Mr. William Bryan, Mr. Gregory McMichael, and Mr. Travis McMichael, they all live in the same neighborhood. This is their community or whatever the case may be. And that's who the video footage came from. So, they thought they was having them a good old time. Mm-hmm. Sundays back in the day used to be called, they used to have picnics on Sundays back in the day. Mm-hmm. So, I haven't looked to see what February 23rd's day of the week was. I'm a little curious. But that's the day that this actually took place. But the video was absolutely gruesome. And it wasn't gruesome in the sense of, blood and everything else, but it was gruesome in the sense of just what was taking place. You got the son on the back of the pickup truck, the dad and his rifle, and then you got some man videotaping it. And you got this young kid running for his life at the end of the day, trying to fight off these men and he ain't done nothing wrong, but running his community of where he's from. So it's just very, very sad that these are the times that we've come to. And I'm grateful that the men were arrested. However, I feel some kind of way because it's just kind of like, it's going to be served, or are we going to find a situation where, they got put on house arrest or they got put on probation?
A slap on the wrist.
A slap on the wrist, because those are the times that we're living in where people feel, and not necessarily people, but the Caucasian community, as it comes to police officers and just your average day Caucasian, they feel comfortable enough to draw guns. It was a Sunday? Mm-hmm. February 23rd was a Sunday. Mm-hmm. So, that kind of resonates something a little bit more. But they feel so comfortable to draw their weapons on us, and the cops feel it okay to draw their weapons on us and just take us down any way possible. And it's just a sad place that we live in, and it's just a sad time that we're still having to deal with these things. But even more on behalf of the African Americans and Black Lives Matters, it's sad that the only times that we can come together and rally together in a professional and well conducted manner is when something like this happens.
Yeah.
But when we do anything else, it's got to be rowdy, it's got to be unnecessary, something has to go down. But when it comes to Black Lives Matter, that's the only time we can band together and act like we got some sense. You know?
Wow. The thing that has been going on for decades, where it's like the father's not in the home, or single parenting, or the lack that we do get when growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like, why we're not coming into, hey, let's put up some type of forms or grants where, you know, it does pushes our culture forward, because we are set back so many years based on the tragedy of slavery.
Absolutely.
Based on just so much that our culture has endured. So it's just like, you know, but that's the only time, because that is a familiar connection.
It's a familiar connection.
Pulled over, the whole ops. You know, every rapper talk about the ops.
Yeah, the opposition of life. We already have so many things up against us at the end of the day. It's just kind of like, you know, you just got to continue to push yourself forward, and you just got to continue to remain positive and not put yourself in negative situations. I've even come to the point where I stopped carrying around my gun with me. And the reason I stopped carrying my gun around with me is because I never want to put myself in a position of I get pulled over or anything of the sort, and somebody feels the need to take my life due to, and they can use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
You won't be able to take me out and that be your excuse as to why, because I had a firearm on me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I did want to commend, there are runners around the world that are dedicating 2.23 miles to, of course, signify the date, February 23rd. So basically, runners all around the world are dedicating 2.23 miles. So if you're a runner out there and you're with the movement, and if you're supporting the Aubrey family, we definitely want to hear about it. Feel free to hit us up on our social media, Generational Empowerment _ or J_man_2020, and you can find Ashley at EmpoweredU_. All right. And my last piece of my segments, Sean Reed was murdered Wednesday night. He was unarmed. However, the only negative, the negative parts of the situation is he obviously was supposed to be stopped for some sort of traffic violation. Rather than being stopped for that traffic violation, he eluded police in a vehicle, at which time he parked the vehicle and got out on foot and started running. At which time these officers tased him, and once they tased him, they proceeded to shoot him.
So he was tased, and we all know that tasing.
He was tased first. Yes, he was tased first. He fell to the ground, and once he fell to the ground, shots were fired. These are the times that we're living in. It's a sad, sad time for the world. But we're going to continue to pray for the Aubrey family as well as the Reed family as they seek justice, and I'm going to continue to keep my ear to the streets as more comes about of these stories.
And check us out next week for chapters 3 and 4. I don't know the names of those, but
the chapter 3 is, let me go on and tell y'all. Chapter 3 is the S word, and y'all ain't gonna wait.
S-E-X.
No, ma'am.
Oh,
has nothing to do with sex.
Oh.
And chapter 4 is intentional dating. Chapter 4 is actually pretty long. It's about 21 pages. But like I say, guys, it's a really, really good read. You can find it everywhere out there. And if you can get the workbook, please get the workbook, because next week we'll be bringing items in from the workbook. So you definitely want to make sure you're tuned in. You definitely want to make sure you're engaged. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day, Ashley. Happy Mother's Day,
I'm not a mother,
Glenn.
but thank you.
You a stepmom.
You right.
You a stepmom.
I forgot.
How you forget?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, y'all. Oh, okay, baby. They said I need to get that put on the shirt. But oh, okay, baby.
Yeah, oh, okay, baby.
But yes, guys, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to talking to you guys each and every week. I am your boy, J Man. You can find me at J_man2020.
Love me, girl. Actually, J. And you can find me at empoweredyou_ on Instagram.
Yes, yes. Catch us on Instagram, generational empowerment _. And we're out.